Assalamu alaikum. I am Gayoor Ahmad, and this again is a lesson for 10th class, subject English, topic punctuation. Dear friends, we will continue our discussion on the use of comma. Point number 14. Use of comma in numbers. Dear friends, commas are used to separate periods in numbers. Friends, in the Indo-Arabic system of enumeration, every period consists of two place values, ones and tens, except the first period to the extreme right, which consists of three places, ones, tens and hundreds. A comma is placed after the first three digits from the right and then after every two digits to separate the periods. For example, 1432 and 25,687. Both these numbers have two periods each, ones period 432 in the first and 687 in the second, and thousands period 1 in the first, 25 in the second, and the two periods in each case are separated by a comma. Similarly, the numbers 9,23,012 and 67,23,000 have three periods each. Lakhs period 9 in the first, 67 in the second, and thousands period 23 in both, while the ones period 12, actually 012 in the first and 000 in the second, and the three periods in each case are separated by commas. Dear friends, in the international system of numeration, every period consists of three place values, and hence a comma is placed after every three digits from the right. For example, the numbers 1432, 25,687 and 923,012 have two periods each. The thousands period 1 in the first, 25 in the second and 923 in the third. While as in the ones period we have 432 in the first, 687 in the second and 12 in the third, and the two periods in each case are separated by a comma. In the fourth number 6,723,000 we have three periods, millions period consisting of 6, thousands period consisting of 723 and ones period consisting of 000, and the three periods are separated by commas. Note, number 1, no space is used before or after the comma. For example, 25,687. Here in these examples we have used spaces on either side of the comma in the first, after the comma in the second, and before the comma in the third, and this is unacceptable. However, only space without comma between the periods is also acceptable. For example, in the number 25,687, the two periods, thousands period 25 and ones period 687 are separated by a space. Similarly, in 67,23,000, the three periods 67, 23 and 000 are separated by spaces. And in the number 6,723,000, the three periods 6,723,000 and 000 are separated by spaces, and spaces without commas are acceptable. Number 2, comma is not used in the decimal fraction, that is to the right of the decimal point. For example, 0.52332. The whole number part is 0 and the decimal fraction part is 52332. In the other two numbers also, 201.52332 and 2736.52332, the whole number part 201 has only one period, while 2736 has two periods, thousands period 2 and ones period 736, which are separated by comma, but the decimal fraction part in all the three cases, that is 0.52332. The digits cannot be separated by commas. And friends, it has already been said that the decimal fraction part is not read as number but as digits. That is 0.52332. It cannot be read as 0.52332. Remember, it is 0.52332, 201.52332 and 2736.52332. Number 3. Commas are not used in phone numbers, serial numbers and other reference numbers. For example, 88250-11448 is a mobile number and JK09A2730 is a vehicle number, and no commas are used in these numbers. Number 15. Use of comma splices. Dear friends, two independent clauses are joined by a conjunction or a semicolon. A comma alone is not strong enough to join them. This kind of mistake is called a comma splice. For example, we were out of milk, I went to the store. The sentence has two clauses, we were out of milk and I went to the store, and using a comma to join the two clauses would be incorrect. The comma splice can be fixed. Number 1, by adding a conjunction. We were out of milk, so I went to the store. The conjunction so is used after the comma. And number 2, by changing comma to semicolon. We were out of milk, semicolon, I went to the store. The two clauses are joined by a semicolon. Number 16. Use of comma after an introductory phrase. Friends, a comma normally follows participle phrases that introduce a sentence. For example, grabbing her umbrella, Rahila raced out of the house. Number 2, confused by his sister's sudden change in mood, Shabi stayed quiet. In these two sentences, we have the introductory participle phrases, grabbing her umbrella in the first and confused by his sister's sudden change in mood in the second, and these are separated from the rest of the sentence by commas. But friends, when an adverbial phrase begins a sentence, it is often followed by a comma, but it does not have to be, especially if it is short. As a rule of thumb, if the phrase is longer, say more than 4 words, we use a comma. For example, after the match, Altaf will be signing autographs. Number 2, behind the building, there is enough space to park 2 cars. And number 3, without knowing why, I crossed the room and looked out the window. In these sentences, we have the introductory adverbial phrases, after the match in the first, behind the building in the second, without knowing why in the third. Although we have used commas to separate these phrases, but commas in all these examples are unnecessary. But if we want to emphasize it or add a pause for literary effect, a comma can be used even with a shorter phrase. For example, in 1857, life was very different. And number 5, suddenly an angry black cat sprang from the shadows. We have used commas to separate the phrases in 1857 in the 4th and suddenly in the 5th. Note, in all these examples from 1 to 5, comma is not essential and can be omitted. But dear friends, if there is a chance of misreading the sentence, the comma should be necessarily used. For example, before eating, the family said grace. If we don't use comma in the sentence after the phrase before eating, the intended sense would not be arrived at, and the sentence may be misunderstood. 17. Use of comma within a comparison. Dear friends, we don't use a comma before than when making a comparison. For example, this stone is lighter than that stone, and private school books are more expensive than government school books. In these sentences, we cannot use a comma between the comparison, that is before than. Number 18, use of comma before but. Friends, we use a comma before the word but if it is joining two independent clauses. For example, Altaf is a good bowler, but he is an even better batsman. We have to use a comma after the first clause. Friends, if but is not joining two independent clauses, we leave the comma out. For example, my teacher is tough but fair, and life is but a dream. The comma is not required. Number 19, use of comma before and. Friends, when we have a list that contains only two items, we don't use a comma before the and. For example, the little girl is cute and smart. Comma is not needed. Similarly, in the sentence, playing cricket and reading novels are my favorite hobbies. Once again, the comma is unnecessary. Friends, when joining two independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction, we put the comma before and. For example, he worked hard and passed the examination with a distinction. We have used a comma before and, but it is not necessary to use a comma. The sentence is correct even without the comma also. Number 20, use of comma separating a verb and its object. Dear friends, a transitive verb is not separated from its direct object by a comma. For example, Maria said she likes chocolates. In the sentence, chocolates is the object of the verb likes and cannot be separated from it by a comma. Similarly, I am glad he regained his health. His health is the object of the verb regained and cannot be separated from it by a comma. And have you read the man with a flower in his mouth? In this sentence, we have a long object, the man with a flower in his mouth. This is the object of the verb read and cannot be separated from it by a comma. 21. Use of comma between correlative conjunctions. Dear friends, correlative conjunctions are conjunctions that come in pairs. For example, either or, neither nor, not only but also. And these connect words or phrases in a sentence to form a complete thought. Friends, typically commas are unnecessary with correlative conjunctions. For example, either the blue shirt or the red sweater will look good with your jeans. The comma before or is unnecessary. Similarly, you can wear a pashmina not only for warmth but also for fashion. Again, the comma before but is unnecessary. Number 22, use of comma with as well as and such as. Friends, the phrases as well as and such as usually don't require commas unless part of a non-restrictive clause. For example, please check for grammatical mistakes as well as spellings. The part following as well as is not non-restrictive and therefore comma is not needed. Similarly, trees such as pine and cypress do not drop their needles in the winter. Here again, the part following such as is not non-restrictive and therefore comma is not needed. On the other hand, spelling mistakes as well as grammatical errors are distracting to read. Here the part after as well as, that is grammatical errors, forms the non-restrictive clause and should be set off by commas. Similarly, coniferous trees such as pine and cypress do not drop their needles in winter. Here again, the part such as pine and cypress is non-restrictive and should be separated by commas. 23. Use of comma before to. Using a comma before to is optional. For example, I like bananas too, and I too like bananas. The comma is not used and the sentences are correct without commas. But a comma simply adds emphasis. For example, I like bananas too, and I too like bananas. Here too is separated from the rest of the sentence by comma. This is for the sake of emphasis. Dear friends, that is all for today. We will be back with some other punctuation mark in our next lesson. And till we meet again next time, it is goodbye and Khuda Hafiz.